welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us here on this webinar today. My name is Brady Barker. I'm with Black Cedar Investments. I'm joined by my business partners, Zach Rucker and Hunter Gasquet. You'll see them be active in the chat. And of course, our speaker, Jim Stewart. I'll get into introing him here in a second, but just real quick, I just wanted to let you guys know I, am the investor relations lead with Black Cedar Investments. So basically, that means what I do full time is I work with our passive investors, make sure they're taken care of, and all their investment goals, we're aware of those and connecting them with the right opportunities. And what we do is we focus on apartment syndications, meaning we purchase large apartment complexes and bring in investors to help make that happen. We're going to be talking more about some of the operations on that tonight, so it'll be fun. But we've, invested in just over 600 apartment units. Over 200 of those are with Jim, and we actually are working on a few more things with Jim as well. So I'm pretty excited with that. But before I jump into introducing Jim and, our topic tonight, I do just want to do a few quick housekeeping items. Appreciate all you guys staying on mute. I know how it goes. If I were at home, I would have my child run around, on my leg. So, and then, you guys are welcome. Please utilize the chat. Any questions that you have throughout the webinar, we ask that you save them till the end. You're welcome to ask them throughout, as long as it's in the chat, we can get to that. And we will have time at the end for the chat. And then just want to give a quick disclaimer that all of this is for educational purposes only. So we do not give legal or financial advice. This is for illustrative and educational purposes, like I mentioned. So now, why are we on this webinar, right? We want to share, quality information to each of you, help educate about the opportunities that are available in real estate investing and apartment syndication specifically. So honestly, we brought in one of the best in the business. Jim is extremely experienced in the operations of this. I told him I've been hyping him up all week. So, if you see him blush there a little bit, that's why. But, Jim is amazing. Known him for a couple years now. And like I mentioned, been able to partner with him now on some things. He's a mentor to us and to many others. He's an incredible business executive. He's grown, global companies before. And throughout that time, actually was investing in real estate since the 90s. In the last decade, he's gone full time in real estate, specifically with apartment syndications. So once again, he's really he gets his hands dirty with these projects. He's not afraid to get in and do what he needs to do. And so
I have no sleeves.
you
don't
don't got to roll them up if you don't got them, right? Always prepared. So, so Jim's ready for that. And honestly, he's just an incredible human. You guys, I'm really excited for each of you to learn on this. So with that, Jim, I don't know if that was okay enough hype up, but I'm ready to go, and I think everyone else here is looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah. Hey, no, thank you very much, Brady. That's very kind of you. Those are kind words, and I think very highly of all the guys here at Black Cedar. Wonderful guys to work with, and very honored to be on this podcast with all of you. I was checking through. No, actually, quite a few of you. So I'm honored that you would come on and listen to what I have to say. It's not a super complex presentation, but it'll get the point across. Let's put it that way. So I think you'll hopefully learn a few things. And, for me, honestly, and I'll start sharing my screen in just a minute, but I'll just talk a little bit first here before we actually go into the presentation. For me, my wife and I, we started in multifamily in Canada. I'm a Canadian, so actually physically up here in Canada right now, enjoying our short summer. Beautiful summers up here. If you get an opportunity to come up to Canada during the summer, you'll just love it up here. Moderate temperatures, not crazy hot, and beautiful scenery. And so therefore, I try and stay up in Canada during this time. Otherwise, I'm in the US a lot, and we invest and buy a lot of apartments down there. But for us, we started in Canada, specifically in Calgary, in 1991. September of 1991 was when we bought our very first apartment block. And I didn't know what value add was back then. but I sure did it. So I just stumbled across it and I didn't know the terms or anything. I was a young guy, and I'll tell you what, once I learned what it really meant, I could see the benefits of it, the value creation, and we kept doing it. And we are a testament to how, if you do it right, you can do very well for yourself and your investors. And that's been a key catalyst for us over the years as to how we've unlocked money both for our family, but also for the fellow investors. And just as people that know me know, we as a family invest in every single one of our projects. We're right alongside. It's a way for us to put our money to work, and we take it very personal. It's all of our project. We're very engaged. As Brady said, I definitely get very involved in the project at the beginning, but I'm also surrounded by a great team. So the great team is able to take quite a bit of the load. I just want to make sure we get set off on the right foot. And then, we really have a great time as a group, and we try and really create a community of a very, we care, so therefore our tenants care, and we create a really great environment for a home for all of our extended family, which is our tenants. So that said, let me just share my screen here on this presentation. Let's get it going here. Just open this here. The heading here is, of course, value add, turbocharge your returns as a passive investor. And as a passive investor, it's really quite amazing when you recognize operators as to what they're doing and how they're doing it. You go, oh, yes, that makes sense. That could do really well for me. And there's different forms of it. I mean, you can have value add, but you can also just have a momentum play where basically it's just good cash flow, you're tweaking it. But we specialize, my wife and I specifically specialize in value add. So let me talk a little bit about it here. So in my own words, there we go to the next slide. In my own words, basically, to keep this really simple in terms of what does it mean? To me, it means making improvements to the property that increases the tenant's desire to be willing to pay more for a nicer home to live in. And so the effect of that, because they enjoy living there, is that we are generally able to increase the rents, which then means we're able to increase our net operating income. And net operating income is the key catalyst, because that's how we evaluate the property, or how a lender would evaluate it, or another company that's going to buy it from us, or investors that are going to buy it. So this is really important. And I believe that, as I already said earlier, it's really important to create a great community for people to live in. And by improving it, and I'll go through different points coming up here, it really creates a good catalyst where there's an alignment where the tenants or our extended family are looking at this as a great place to live because they love being there. And all of a sudden, the rent is not the issue. It's they love living there. And we've done this time after time, and it's worked well for all of us. So it's a win-win for everyone. So there are basically two styles that I would focus on. And there's the heavy lift and the light, what I like to term micro reposition. And I'm going to give Dave Lindell the credit for the micro reposition term, because that's where I first heard it, is him using that term. And there's two different styles to it. So I want to go through what both of them are, so you get a context around what this all can look like. So on a heavy lift, basically, it's generally more a reposition of a property. So the properties that we're involved in, when we get into these, they're usually not stabilized. So that means we've got vacant units, and we usually have down units. So down unit means a unit that cannot easily be rented. It needs a lot of work to get it back on track. There may be some that aren't, but usually there's more work there than normal. And so you're going to need a big budget to manage this. Things that you're going to deal with quite often end up being deferred maintenance items. And these deferred maintenance items can be the roofs, and roofs are a pretty sore topic with a lot of operators because with the storms that are happening, whatnot, one of the first questions we ask when we're looking at a property is, how old are the roofs? And then we're looking to see if there's been storms and things like this to determine what life's left in those roofs, because it adds up quickly. And I'll just say these items here that I'm listing, they don't create necessarily direct value in terms of the tenants paying more rent. It's just part of the structure of the property that you are expected to have in good condition in order for them to want to live there. So it's one of those things, if it's a well-maintained property, great. Then it's easy to deal with because you continue to replace as needed. But when you get deferred, which is usually in a heavy reposition, it can add up. Parking lot's another one. Usually you'll get potholes and or a lot of spidering in there where you've got all this asphalt starting to break apart. And when you have rain going into those, that is just a terrible situation for asphalt. It shortens its life. And therefore, then you start having to re-asphalt or repave areas, and that can add up. Exterior building potential issues such as siding. We see a lot of siding that is on its last legs, especially certain types of it. If it's a wood-based product, we get wood rot and wood rot around the trim pieces and that sort of stuff, especially if you're in southern climates with extreme sun and heat. You'll get this wood rot if it's not been properly painted or protected. That sun will just basically rot it away very, very quickly. Also, then, just a sec here, next slide. There can be, depending on the age of the property, you can get into plumbing and electrical. So we typically try and stay ourselves late 80s and newer. That said, the last project was 1985 that we closed on June 21st, and the one that we're currently working on is in 1980. But the good news is plumbing and electrical aren't issues in there. But if you're in the 70s, 60s, 50s, please watch out. And so when you're doing these rehabs, if you're in that range, or if there's been a lot of leaks because of the poor PEX, like the plumbing, there was an issue with that in the late 70s, early 80s as well with a certain style, then you've got to be aware of that. And when you start replacing that, that can add up. Electrical as well. If it's older, it's probably aluminum wiring, or you may have panels that aren't up to code. So those are some of the things. Typically, we find when we're doing a heavy lift reposition, we're getting into doing heavier renovations where our kitchens, we're probably replacing the kitchen cabinets, and we're probably putting new countertops on, and we're redoing the bathrooms. Quite often we're going in, replacing the tub or shower area, potentially with a new tub, potentially with new tiles or tub surround, but generally it's always usually tile. And so it's major work basically with these heavy repositions. Down here, sorry, next slide. So, oops, sorry, I skipped ahead here. Apologize. Go back up here. So basically, you're also with these sort of projects, they typically don't have a good image in the marketplace. A lot of bad reviews generally online. So you're going to look to rebrand the property as well to help shed all of the old stigma that's attached to it. And these projects, you can do them in 12 months, but generally they're more 24 plus months, 36 in some cases, depending on what you're dealing with. And inherently with the heavy repositions, because of these larger capital items, you have a large budget that you need to complete all these improvements. So it's definitely a lot more moving parts. And because it's a lot more moving parts, you need a very experienced operator to execute and navigate. And I put the waters of the contractors, because contractors, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't have the right type of contracts, you can get very easily conned on it and taken advantage of. So it's definitely not for the inexperienced person to get involved. And the other characteristic, typically with a heavy lift reposition, is there's generally little to no cash flow for 12 to 18 months. And this is just due to the fact you've got a lot more down units, you're trying to bring them back online, and you're working to start releasing, and there's just a lot of heavy costs that are calling demands on your cash flow. If done right, though, this style of reposition can have a large upside to you, and you can build a value add into it as you're doing it, which I'll get into it a bit more, and you'll be able to recognize some of the value adds that I'm going to define here. So with this type of deal, not generally good cash flow. So as an investor, you've got to be okay with that, but a very good payout at the end of the deal typically, and or cash flow at the very end of the deal typically. That's the style of it. So here's some examples. This is actually a project that we did in Texas, and the picture you see on the left is the bathroom. And actually you can see through to the other unit, because it's right down to studs, and you can see the corner of one tub and another tub, and and then the picture swings basically to a 90 degree, and you can see what we're dealing with. We've got studs that are rotten, and we've got some cast iron to deal with. And this is a reposition. But what you can see on the right side, these are pictures of these units, not this particular, but we had a lot of units like this finished. So it's amazing, and I personally get a lot of satisfaction seeing the end result of what we've done to it, in terms of it's amazing that we put it all back together, and it's, a nice place to live. It's really appealing. But I just want to give you a visual to give you a sense of, when you get into repositions, sometimes they can go this extreme, sometimes not as extreme, but you definitely need to understand what you're doing, or have someone on your team that really has this experience to help navigate it. Here's another picture showing a kitchen area. So this actually is a picture of a kitchen that you would see right in front of you. And then there's another kitchen that would go back, so it's back-to-back kitchens. You can see right through to the other unit. And so in this particular case, we're changing out wiring, the plumbing there. You see some cast iron with the cast iron stack coming up there. That's getting all changed out to PVC, because it's all exposed. So we're going to change that while we've got access to it. But on the right-hand side, that's the finished product. That's how it looked when it's all said and done. So it gives you a sense of how we kind of work the property and do the renovation on it. So on a light lift or micro reposition lift, which is where I tend to play more of, because the other ones take a lot of energy, and yes, I do them, but I can do a lot more of these light lift micro repositions and get really good rate of returns on them, and do more of them in the same time period as the heavy lift. So micro reposition or a light lift is where the property is stabilized and positive cash flowing. What does that mean to the investor? That means we've got cash flow to pay investors, uh, cash flow every quarter. And really the goal with this is to keep increasing it as we improve the units. So there's only some vacant units. We don't touch or fix any major items with all the things I talked about before: the roof, the parking lot. Parking lot, we're probably just going to look at what they call doing some basic patching, and we're going to seal and stripe it. So striping means put the paint lines on it, and it can make a huge difference. And when you seal it, any small spidering or whatnot, you're sealing that off, it'll fill in, so it extends the life. But we're not looking to do any major repairs. Plumbing as well, electrical, windows is another one that we try and avoid getting involved with we're really focused on really more of the interior side. So we're going to look at on the interior, improving the lighting. So lighting is a more modern lighting package that you can get pretty affordable. And this also on the exterior will create a very safe feel for the community. The other side benefit to that is we're putting in LED lighting. So if they're incandescent, we're going to save a lot of power for the property. But it also, you can create a nice ambience, but also create a safe, secure feeling property for the tenants. We will paint the exterior where needed as well, and the landscaping. It's amazing what you can do when you clean up landscaping, what a difference it can make on the property. Trim trees, take down unwanted trees, shrubs as well. Just by cleaning up a lot of this stuff, which a lot of times has been neglected, it can really make a difference. One thing I don't have listed here that we like to do is power wash. We'll power wash the property buildings, and there it can really bring to life a lot of the building look and make it look just that much better. Interiors, we're going to deal with updated lighting, as I started to mention, updated plumbing fixtures. Um, you can get, there's a lot of units that have the old style kitchen sink faucet where it's just kind of coming off at a slight angle and they're flat basically versus getting the gooseneck style. And those sort of things go a long ways. We will change out sinks if we need to, but typically when we're looking at the cabinets and the countertops and the sinks, we look to see where the life's at on it. And most cabinets we may either reface and put the pull hardware on, so new cabinet doors, or we'll paint the cabinets and put new pull hardware on it, modern looking pull hardware. And that can make a big difference. And then the countertops, either we can replace it, and depends on whether we're a C property or a B property, whether we would just put more arborite or laminate countertops, or we're going to improve it with granite or some other stone surface. And in some cases, we'll also put the backsplash, the tile on the backsplash area as well. And it's surprising what that can do in terms of the feel of the unit. And all these things combined help create this rent increase that we're about to talk about. Tech package, depending on the property, we'll look at that as well. New flooring, if it needs it. Quite often when we go in on turns, we'll change it, but we look to put the LTV flooring in and carpet in some cases on the second floor in the bedrooms, just depending on that particular property. Here. So a light lift, here's an example of a property that we have. It's over in by the Chattanooga area. And here's the kitchen on the left. And so it's pretty good shape. Appliances look a little older in there. So what we did is we painted the cabinets and we put new pull hardware on it. We put a new countertop on it, which in this case is a stone countertop. And we've put the stainless steel. We replaced the light. You can see the new plumbing faucet, sink faucet there. And basically, flooring actually in this particular case was good in a lot of the units, so we didn't replace it unless we absolutely had to. But you get a sense of what it can, how you can change it with not a lot of money, and how it just brightens it up and makes it look a lot more modern. So let's show you how we turbocharge the returns with value add. And this is, call it this, the great thing. I just love how this, I think you're going to be really pleasantly surprised with what the impact is when you start looking at some of these numbers, as to a little goes a long ways. And I just will repeat again, we are looking to drive every additional dollar of rent increase to the bottom line. And so typically we've already got our expenses paid. So it's called incremental growth, incremental profit. because it'll just generally fall straight to the bottom line with every dollar we do. And this is a wonderful thing, great for the investors, great for all of us. So some of the value adds I personally focus on are these interior improvements, valet garbage pickup. A lot of properties will put that in. And what this means is basically we pick up the garbage for them. They stick it outside their door. We take care of it for them, and but they pay us a fee to do this. Um, Depending where you are in the US, but I'm investing currently in a lot of the southern states. And boy, is it hot down there with that sun beating down, and you also get the rains coming down. So covered parking becomes a nice thing to have, and people will pay you for that, as well as assigned parking we generally give with the covered parking. And you can get a pretty good rate of return if you add those structures into your property. I wouldn't suggest putting it in one for one, but definitely because you want to create some demand with them, but definitely a great value add. Washer and dryer edition. Oh, I'm just this is what I call the $1 million for every property we seem to do of half decent size. It generates an extra $1 million in value for us. Time and time again. Since 2015, I can't tell you how many properties I've done this with, and it's just been gold, sheer gold for us. Also other value adds I do focus on tech packages, so high-speed Wi-Fi. So we'll look at a property and negotiate with a provider to get us great bandwidth, especially if our market is catering to some younger people or people are trying to work from home. These things nowadays, it's all shifted away from satellite dishes and having cable in your place to watch TV. You just drive everything on the Wi-Fi generally for most of it. Even if you have a phone connection, you're going to drive it through there, or you look at these meetings. It becomes really important to have good bandwidth. And it actually can be quite a nice feature to have. If you can wrap this as part of your offering and give them great bandwidth, you can charge, and they're going to pay for it anyway if they do it, but we can usually offer them a discounted rate, but we're also making money on it as well. So it's a contributing to our NOI. And then you're also able to give them the thermostat so we can have that control for them. And there's other things in a tech package, just even with the power outlets having USB connections. So you can not just have to plug the connector in, you can plug it directly in with those micro USBs now versus the standard USB, but we'll do stuff like that. Parcel package locker center. If we have room, we're going to put it in because, boy, I know around our house, that thing, there's a delivery almost every day coming to our door. And I'm going to tell you that at the properties, we have lots of packages. And obviously, we don't want people to be losing their packages, getting them stolen. And so if you can put a locker package center in and they can rent those lockers, it's tenants really appreciate it. We appreciate it because we don't get the complaints of potential theft. The office appreciates it because now the delivery guys aren't trying to always deliver it at our office as well for fear of theft. So it's just a good all-around option. Amenity improvements, there can be some things. It's not a direct value add, but it helps improve the overall quality of life at the property. And so if you put a so there's tennis courts on a lot of the properties we look at. Pickleball is a big one. Soccer's another one. Dog parks are big. So things like this we'll look at, and it only helps support the property itself and what we're offering. So let me give you an example of what we do in terms of our interior units, and then I'm gonna kind of show you what sort of rent we can get out of it, a range, and what that translates into value add in terms of dollars, and what it translates to you as an investor or us as investors in our properties. So typically we'll put the lighting package in, new modern lighting, as I've talked about before, the plumbing, the new fixtures. You saw that in the picture that I showed you. 2-inch blinds we like to put in. There's a lot of properties that have the 1-inch blind, and boy, if you have a cat or a dog, they just destroy those things. So try and put the 2-inch so it'll have integrity. It just looks a lot better. So we really try and focus on changing the whole property over there. Painted or refaced cabinets with pole hardware. You saw an example of that. New LTV flooring, carpet in the bedrooms. The flooring, we try and put a quality flooring in, because if we put a poor quality, boy, we pay a price, because now we end up replacing it too quickly. So we need to get the right value to life on that to make sure that it's worth our time. Painting 2 colors. So it doesn't cost much to add a second color and to not just paint it sterile white. And so we will put a couple of colors in there, make it feel a lot more modern and homey at the place. And we've had great response to that. So it just makes it feel that much nicer to be in. Appliances as needed. Sometimes we'll change out to black or stainless. This is truly market dependent. When I first started in Georgia, 2015, honestly, black was the stainless. Everyone wanted black. Now, honestly, it's more stainless than black there. But you go to Texas, as an example, or Arizona, it's stainless all the way. So we'll put those in generally. And it also depends on the level of property. If it's workforce housing C class, chances are may not, depends on that. Or if it's C plus or B, for sure we'll do it. Bathroom updates, so update the tub area by refinishing, putting new tile or tub surround, potentially new vanity with sink, just things to refresh it a bit. So value add interior unit improvement. Average renovation costs at the low end is $3,000. So chances are you're not putting flooring in for that, or you're changing appliances, okay? You're doing the fixtures of plumbing, the lighting, you're doing some painting, partly blinds, maybe a countertop, maybe a little bit of work on the cabinets, maybe painting and putting hardware. 9,000 on the other hand would be the other swing, where now you're refacing the cabinets, you're putting a new appliances in, you're doing the flooring. So you're doing a lot of the stuff I've mentioned. Average rent increase we target when we do these is $100 to $250 per unit per month. So when we look at this, when we have a $3,000 increase, I'm going to show you the 3,000, I'm going to show you the other extreme. 3,000, that's $1,200 a year. I'm just going to use a 6.5 cap rate. And I'm choosing that because a lot of interest rates are 5.8 to 6.2, and we try and buy our properties. And so you don't want to have a negative inversion going on your value. And I don't want to get into the details of it, but we'll just say 6.5 for this example. Every increase, so this increase creates $18,462 per unit value increase. If you have 100 units, you just increase the value of this property by $1.84 million. That's a lot of increase, but that's just the start of it. If you can get $250 a month rent increase at 6.5 cap, it will increase it by $4.6 million. That is significant. As an investor, we love to see that. If we look at valet garbage, it's running $25 to $35 a month. So if I split the middle on that at $30, that's $360 a year per unit generated at 6.5 cap. That increases our per unit value at 5,500, or 100 units we implemented across, that's $554,000 gain in value. Once again, small numbers equal big value gains increase. Washer and dryer. as I already mentioned, I love washer and dryer. So some of the things you need to just think about right off the top, because it's not just as simple as, hey, let's put them in. Do they have the hookups already? Typically, the properties that we look at based on their age, we already have those hookups. So we're looking late 80s, 90s. Generally, those will have them in. If they do not, there are steps, but I'm not going to get into all the steps, but you definitely can take a look at it and see if you can add them in. I've done it many times, so I'm happy to have a separate conversation around that. And there's a balancing point where it becomes worth it or not worth it. Generally, just about on every property, we've done it because it's worth it. The other thing to consider with the washer and dryer is to buy or to rent or to buy it outright. I'm just going to tell you, for us, we buy them always. We're always buying them. And with the new leases, so as the property turns and we get a new person in, we add the washer and dryer in as part of the lease. It's just automatic. Most people will then go to rental center, lease them anyway, or they may have their own, but most people are renting anyway, so it's convenient for them to have that in there. So we can charge across our properties, we're charging between $50 to $70 a month. So at $50, I go to the low end on this, that equals $600 a year per unit. Once again, using the 6.5 cap rate, it works out to $9,200 value increase per unit. If you put it across, in this example, 100 units, that's another $923,000 increase in value. Crazy amount of dollar value increase, close to $1 million in this example. If we went 55 to $60, we'd have $1 million gain just on this. Sorry, come on, there we go. So we are always striving for wealth creation. Our goal is to improve the net operating income when we look at a property. Always, always. It's how, obviously, we're creating a great community, as I talked about earlier. We want the tenants to love living there. And so by creating a place where we're taking care of the repairs, so there's no frustration there. They want to stay there because we're having community events. We know them. We really engage with them. And then we've also got these things that help them, which also help us. It's a win-win. So by improving that net operating income, the effect of implementing this value add to the bottom line at a 6.5 cap rate, I just want to express to you that $1 equals over $15 in value increase to the property. That's a 1 and a 15 multiplier, 1.5 multiplier. It's crazy how important this is, and it's not that hard to do if you know what you're doing. So let me just summarize with what I presented here. We've got the interior improvements that equaled 4.6 million. We got valet trash at 554,000. We got the washer and dryers at 923,000. That equals, with just those three, and we do more than that, 6 million, almost $6.1 million value increase. And so in 100 units, I'm just going to use an assumption here at 120,000 a unit, so a $12 million value just for this example. Generally, we find you're putting 50 to 55% of the purchase price is what you're going to need in raised capital to go in. So in this case, if we use 50%, that's $6 million of capital we've raised from investors and us people as GPs that have invested in with as well. What that means, though, is we've increased the value of the property by almost 6.1 million. That's a 101% value increase. And if the investors own 70% of the project, we've just improved it by their investment dollar by 71% by doing this value add. And that's before you still got rent increases that you can work on. There's other value adds. So, and I'm just going to tell you, please keep in mind when you take over a property, not everyone is at the right rent rate. So you've got a loss to lease that you're working on to balance that off. So those aren't value adds, but those are operational improvements that you're working at. So with the operational improvements, you can still increase. And this is how we typically go at offering 100% rate of return in 5 years, 20% on average, with that's including cash on cash through that time period. And that's how we can offer it. And quite honestly, a lot of times we can do it quicker than 5 years, but we always want to keep it conservative when we look at this and say 5 years for it. So this is why I believe investors and myself love hearing about value add, because when you recognize it, you go, okay, this is how they're going to make money for all of us. And it's a great, great way business plan that I love to use. So Brady, that is my presentation on value add and why I believe in it so much. And I'm happy to turn it back over to you and answer any questions as well.
Hey, I love it. Yeah, thank you so much, Jim, for sharing that. And for anyone who maybe can't isn't in a position to see right now, Jim has his contact info up, so you want to be able to get that. But um, yeah, I think we can definitely open it up
All right.
for
I just shut
questions
I
now.
shut down that to get the full screen, but we can definitely
Yeah,
share.
yeah, yeah. Let's do it. So yeah, I there's a couple questions that came in before the meeting, and then also a few during it, both through to the entire group and then through direct messages. So if anyone else does have questions, feel free to put them in the chat now at this time.
Or I guess
Um,
if, are you okay with raising hands as well if you want, or?
yeah, yeah, that totally works. We can get these burn through these first few,
Sure.
and then yeah, anyone who has a question, feel free to raise your hand. Um, So, first of all, I did just barely receive a question. Will anyone be able to access the slides that were shared?
100%.
Awesome,
Well,
awesome. We'll
that's
make
that's
sure.
up to you, but
Oh,
making them available to you. So
yeah, yeah. We'll send it out with the replay. We'll make sure we get that. And yeah, especially with those examples, that'll be powerful for everyone to be able to see. It's fun to see those numbers. And speaking of which, I think the numbers is a part where a lot of people end up, uh, questioning, or not questioning, but in a positive way, right? They say, well, what are the returns, right? What's that look like for me? And so we could see that at the end there was a 100% return. But so somebody just was asking, what's like a typical range, right? And keep in mind, everyone, to answer this question, this is not projections or anything like that. It's just for illustrative purposes. But
yes.
what range could investors expect on these different types of value add projects? Because you mentioned the heavy and the light or the micro.
Yeah, so the key difference on that heavy is that there's going to be no cash flow typically on those till towards the latter part of the project, and depends on the business plan. If it's to actually hold it for 5 years, a lot of times when you do a heavy lift, it's about getting it across the finish line, stabilized, and selling it, and then making all the money at the back end. So those typically, when we're modeling it, we want to get at least 100% rate of return on our money during that time period. Not always do we model it like that, but that's the general gist on a heavy lift. And then it's just the time value, which is that now over 3 years, 4 years? And so it's for some investors, they love it because of the back end, they're patient. Other people say, no, I just want to see steady cash flow coming in with the upside, the property increasing in value. Well, in those cases, then I know for us, we were targeting 6 to 8%. I know a lot of groups are out there doing the same thing. And so most groups are modeling similar to us, where you back yourself into better cash flow. So what I mean by that is the cash flow might be 4 or 5 the first year, or a little bit less, and then it keeps growing, and it's kind of like a slight angle of a curve going up, which allows then the investors to get a pretty steady cash flow. And then at the 5 year mark, the question becomes, do we sell it? Do we refi it? And we like to, in our case, talk to the investors about it. Our
Uh,
business plan is 5 years, 100% rate of return. But honestly, I've been in situations where all the investors saying, no, no, we love the cash flow. Let's not sell it. So those that do want to get out will refinance it, and the group of us will buy those people out and then continue to hold it. So it just depends. Every group's a little bit different. Some are very, and I was the same way earlier on. Nope, we're selling it, we're selling it. That's it. No one gets a choice. But now that I'm getting a little older, I really enjoy cash flows. So I'm kind of with a lot of other people. Cash flow is nice to have. So anyway, so in terms of the value add on a lighter lift amplifies the cash flow quicker for you. So you're able to
Totally.
enjoy more cash flow.
Love that. Love that. And it's funny, that was actually one of the questions that came in the chat. I don't know if you saw that about
Mm.
buying and holding the properties. And I do just want to really quick highlight for everyone that I've talked to a lot of investors, active and passive investors, and there's not a lot of people who do that. This is something pretty unique that Jim does. He's the first person I worked with to say this. And it's pretty cool, like as passive investors, to have the choice to be able to say, hey, as you're coming up on maybe that 5 year mark where you're originally going to sell, if you guys want to hold on to it, having that power. So I love that you brought that up actually. Um, and then so getting through a couple of the other questions that came in earlier, cash flow, that one was answered. And then when adding in parcel lockers, do you typically renovate some of the already available square footage, or do you add in like an additional new building?
I generally try and find space within. Sometimes they've had laundry centers in there in addition to hookups, but they haven't taken advantage, so they have the laundry center. So we'll take out the laundry center because we're putting in the washer and dryers, and we'll renovate that space. Sometimes there's enough what I call maintenance area that we can do it, or where the mailboxes are, we can sometimes build them in there. And we may there have to build a slight extension to it. But we'll try not to build a whole new structure just for that. That gets pretty pricey.
Awesome. Awesome. And then Pooja, we'll just get one more from earlier and then we'll get to you here in a second. Um, so the question was using the 100 door property example with valet garbage, do you hire additional labor or do that in-house with your maintenance team?
Yeah, so typically on our properties, we'll have an additional person on to do make ready. So we internalize the make ready side of it quite often. And so that person is usually the one that will be assigned that task. And obviously, if we at the beginning have a lot of make readies to deal with, which can quite often happen in the first month or two, we'll hire outside services to speed it along. But yeah, we usually budget it within our staff, but recognizing, like, for instance, if it was a 200 unit, the rule would be 2 in, 2 out. We'll probably have 2 in and 3 out. So 3 on that maintenance team, with one of them being assigned to the turnovers and make readies. And so we can usually justify it very easily based on at the beginning what we're trying to do. Gets a little harder if it's really running well, and
Yeah.
then the person we may want to have more of a part-time person.
Awesome. Awesome. Makes sense. And I will just say too, with any of these questions that you guys have in the chat, we'll get to all them here, but if there's any clarification or anything that you guys want to ask, feel free to raise your hands as well. But Pooja, we'll go to your question. Feel free to unmute your mic and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Brady, and thank you, Jim, for such a great information. That is really helpful. So my
Thank you.
question, actually, I was underwriting a very small property. That's a new property, and that's 2023 build. But they don't have washer dryer hookups. But the broker told that it's easy to install as it's built like that. So how much is gonna cost to install the washer dryer hookups? And
Where do
is it
you
a
think,
or
yeah,
a small?
where do you think you can put them? In other words, is a room in the kitchen area to add it on and add an extra wall? Or do you think there's a closet that might go by the bathroom you can put it in? And the reason why I ask is if you can tie it into the drainage in the water, it sure makes it easier. As opposed to then it gets expensive the further away you are, and the power is the other part of it. On that side, power is less of an issue generally, but the plumbing is, and that's why I always look for the closet close to the bathroom and say, oh, good, there's one here I can sacrifice to put it into.
Yeah, that's the closest to the kitchen area. So yeah, but because it's a small property, does it make sense? Is it gonna be really good investment to install the hookups and then provide washer dryer?
I, I honestly, I would take a look at what's going on in your marketplace. Like if this is this new, I'm shocked it doesn't have it. And I would suggest if the other properties of that age in that marketplace have them, you're going to be at a disadvantage because when you go to advertise and you have in suite, you got a different class of tenant than when you don't have. And I'm thinking you probably want that class of tenant because those tenants will tend to pay more. So you need to just do a little bit of market research in that area to understand what's going on with the other properties. But my gut would say chances are it's going to be an advantage for you to have, and it'll give you a lot more headroom to potentially move your rents up.
So the area is really good as a research because a lot of new residents are building there, and there's a great upside down for that. And so another thing, actually, another question I have is to build a second bath. Is it easy? Like, of course, it's not easy, but does it make sense to make it
Now,
the
now,
you
now you're getting adventurous. So a second bath. Well, it's the square footage has got to come out of somewhere. And people like closet space. So if you're trying to put washer and dryer in, you're losing one closet. And now if you're trying to put another bathroom in, I'd have to see the floor plan to know, because what I will just say is please keep in mind, you still need a certain amount of storage in your unit. And if they don't have closet space, it'll hurt you more than having a second bath.
Yeah, I agree. That means I don't know why and how they have planned it. They make two-story, but they have only one bath, which is downstairs, and two
Mhm.
bedroom upstairs without bathroom.
Okay, I see the motivation why you'd want to do it. Yeah, yeah. Well, here again, if you talk to an experienced property manager with some construction people involved, they're going to be able to help you because they should have that experience to say this will make sense for you and find the point of which it's not going to cost too much, because the key is if it costs too much money, you're not going to get a rate of return on it.
Yeah, and I would say, of course, Puja, with this, like Jim said, it's all very nuanced based on the market, based on the situation. So definitely, happy to, get on a more one-on-one call offline and discuss through
Mhm.
specific situations.
Yeah, thank
So
you. Thanks.
You're
Thank
awesome.
you.
I
welcome.
know
Thank
we're,
you.
yeah, thank you, Puja. I know we're coming up here on the hour mark, so if any of you guys need to hop off, Jim, we have a couple more questions. Are you okay to push it
I'm
about
happy to
five
stay.
minutes?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll send the bill in the mail to you.
yeah, sounds good. Um, Real quick, I know we had some technical difficulties earlier, so not everyone may have seen some of these, but um, there was a question about washer and dryer. You already answered this, right? That you say you buy them whenever possible. Um, so let us know if you have any follow-up questions with that for Brian. And then for next question, is asked, do you target adding valet trash washers and dryers to all the units in like the example? So using the example of the 100 units, would you try and do it with all 100 units if possible?
Um, so washer and dryer, yes. If it's possible. Sometimes it's just not possible. So we do as many as possible, but yeah, so generally, yes. Valet trash, generally if we feel the property will accept it and it's a value, we implement it through the whole property. And so we just make it part of the service that we offer. And then, sorry, what was the other part? So we had the washer and dryer, the valet,
Yeah, that
trash.
was it. It was
That was
just
it?
those two
Okay.
parts.
Okay.
Awesome. Let us know, Jan, if that answered your question fully. And then Last two questions here. So this is a good one. Who and when do you set your CapEx budget? And at what point do you agree on a plan for each property?
But sorry, can you repeat that? I was reading another question, which is a good question, so.
Yeah. These last two are both they're
Yeah,
both good ones. So
yeah, so is it, who and when do you set your CapEx budget? Is that the one?
correct.
At what point do you agree on a plan for each property? Generally, before we buy it, we're doing the pre-due diligence, and then obviously we're checking it pretty close, pretty experienced at it, so we're pretty dialed in. But obviously, once we gain control of the property, then we do further investigation to test our assumptions to make sure they still work and adjust if need be. But typically, we already have it dialed in pre-buying the property. So that's kind of when we're setting the CapEx budget. And because we're in the business, we already have a sense of the costs of what it is. We just validate that in that geographical area, if it's a different market, that they're still holding true.
Yeah,
I
love
see the
that.
last one. So is it that how do you position properties at sell in terms of any meat on the bone? Do you turn all units and leave as classic? So here's the interesting thing, because we're holding it for 5 years, we do look to turn them all. Because I'll tell you, at 5 years, there's another value add. That's a great thing. At 5 to 7 years, you can unlock more value again, typically with these properties. So it's interesting because every property usually has this 5 to 7 year life cycle. It may not be as significant, depends on the area, but honestly, I've seen it time and time again where we're going, oh, hey, we can unlock more value now that this time's passed because things are getting tired. New things are trending. So typically if we're going to keep it less than 5 years, 100% part of the sales strategy is leave meat on the bone. If we're keeping it 5 years, then we know we're probably safe on the sales side to have this new value add starting to be there. And we can usually, as part of our sales strategy, start doing part of it to prove it out for the next seller.
Awesome. Love that. Great. Well, that gets through all the questions in the chat. I believe, unless we missed any, feel free to raise your hand. I apologize if so. But Miss Cindy, do you have a question? You can unmute your mic and ask your question.
And maybe while we're just waiting for Cindy, if maybe one thing we could do is take pictures of all of us on here, side by side.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
that'd
that'd
be
be great
great.
if we could do that.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Well, I'm having a little difficulty right now with my camera, sorry.
Well, that's okay.
But my question was, what is your take on the storage spaces? Is it something you try to put in, or is it something that's like kind of vague, or should it all be because of comps in the area?
So typically the properties that we're dealing with will have storage spaces. The older units, like if you're talking 60s, 70s, typically won't. But when we're talking late 80s, 90s, they'll typically have the storage already in there or enough closet space. So we're not as focused on that. I typically don't try and add them say per se where I'm modifying the area, though if I do feel we need to, is on the balcony. If there isn't a shed or there, you'll see a lot of properties where they've got one, we'll add it there. And so they pick up some storage just outside. So it's a mix as to whether or not, but it really does come down to micro area and larger geographical area overall, and the property class as to whether that's going to be important or not. If, for instance, you're in a core area and it's trending where you can walk to places, you're going to need storage for bikes. You got to figure it out because people are going to want that. Versus if you're in the burbs, it's more about now charging stations and things like that you're going to want to look at on the property.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. So yeah, real quick before everyone else has to hop off, because I know we're over time here, let's change this view here. Go to gallery, and Zach, can you see us okay? To be able to take a picture. So everyone, if you're able to, we'd love for you guys to go on camera, you know, do it for the gram or the talk or whatever people say these days, the Facebook, I don't know. So yeah, everybody smile. Jim, did you get everybody? Zach,
I
did you
did.
get
Yeah,
everybody?
yeah. You can go to the next screen. I see we got 4 of them.
Okay. All right. We got the second screen and then the last screen here.
Huh, mine's not. Oh, I see why. Okay. Let's do this. I guess I gotta do it.
Oh.
There we go. No, no worries.
Hey, Brady, can you just tile them? That way we all are in the same frame.
Dude, I don't know what you just said, Sanjay. What
Can
is
you
that?
just tile everyone?
I got him.
That way everybody shows up on that one screen.
Oh, I
Not
don't.
techie enough.
Yeah, we've got what, 2, 4. We got 20. I've got 20 anyway showing on mine per
Yeah,
screen.
Sanjay and Zach are more techie than me, so
No worries, I got everybody.
You have 58 participants, so make sure that you have everyone.
Yeah.
we got it.
Yeah,
Lots
in
of
the
people I
view.
recognize. So hello to everyone. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak. Obviously, they're going to send out my contact information. Feel free to reach out. Honestly, I'm just going to say, in my career, I had lots of help. A lot of people made a lot of effort to help me pull me up. And I believe it's a better world if we all can help each other, pull each other up. And so I love trying to help other people out. And so please, if you
Hey.
need help, feel free to reach out.
Brady, go to view and put that view into gallery.
I have it.
Let me screenshot this. That way I have it.
Okay.
I took care of that. There you go.
Thanks, Sanjay.
Yeah. I'll send
Sanjay's
it.
great. We need to do a webinar with Sanjay at one point, but if any of you guys know him, he's incredible.
You got Jim. You don't need anybody else.
Oh, no.
good.
No, I need you, Sanjay. I need you for a lot of things, but help me out on all these deals. But all right, everybody, thank you so much for coming. Like Jim said, you know, we'll shoot out the slides that has his contact information. You know, feel free to respond to that email with anything for, you know, any questions for myself or anything we can help you guys with as well. But once again, thank you all for coming and have a blessed night. All right.
Thank you very much,
everyone.
Jim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Brady.
Guys,
Thank you.
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Thank you.